Hi. How's everyone doing?
Good.
You guys do the business planning clinic?
Yeah. Yeah.
How was it?
It was good. It was long, but it was good. Yeah.
My experience is that I didn't have enough information. I couldn't follow, and there was no one to follow the chat and respond to the questions because I kept asking for links and where and like. So totally, like I get to figure out.
Yeah, like what was emailed to us was like one thing, and then what we went over was different. So it was, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, I'll tell you this, it is very difficult to monitor chat when you're teaching on Zoom. There were a couple more people I know who wanted to connect that were texting me. Let me text them and let them know we are starting. All right. Do you have a business plan now, though? I'm really bummed I couldn't attend.
He's gonna finish the class tomorrow, and so yeah, I mean that like link that you look at is like 140 pages. So
Oh, wow.
yeah, there's a lot to learn.
Yeah. Let me see who else is on the call. Okay, we have a couple more people connecting. Just so you guys know, it's really hard for me to teach on Zoom, just like Phyllis is doing with me. If you have a quiet, a quiet area that you're calling in from, I welcome you to take yourself off mute. I really like an interactive class. Hi, Erin. My class is only as good as the questions that I have. So also, if I use any acronyms or anything like that, stop me, remind me. I do it with clients, I do it with you. I don't want to. I've been doing it a long time and I came from escrow. Everything in escrow is an acronym. So I really screw myself up with that teaching or talking to clients. Okay, I think we have probably everyone who's going to be on the call. Oh, maybe not. We have a few more people now. Okay, so today we're going to talk about listing presentation. So we're going to conceptually talk about what goes into it. Listing presentation can take a lot of different forms. It can be digital, it can be print. Erin, it's so weird to stare at your face on a Zoom call. Erin is on my team, so we work together a lot, but we don't usually do Zoom. We're in the bubble together. Mm-hmm. You can do pre-listing packages if you want to get fancy. I will tell you this, is that although I do recommend having a listing presentation ready to go, every listing presentation should be slightly different. And so you can have your bound listing presentation, but you're probably also going to want to bring supplementary info. Some of the things that are different for me each time are obviously the CMA, which is the most important part of any listing presentation. But also I try to choose photography and marketing examples if I'm going to bring any, include it in my listing presentation, that sort of reflect the price range and hopefully, if I'm able, the style of the property that I'm going on the listing presentation for. So, if you don't have those photos and you're a new agent, you'd ask your mentor. I have a great photographer that I work with who works with a lot of high-end agents, and he's able to share some photos with me sometimes. So let's talk about some of the other things that are going to go into a listing presentation. You guys should already have this, particularly if you're new agents, but if you don't, I want you to get started on it right away. A bio, okay? So your bio needs to be in your listing presentation. And I will tell you this, as someone with an English degree, focus in creative writing, did I write my own bio? No, I did not. It is really hard and really weird to write about yourself, particularly in a third person. Also, because it's so strange to talk about yourself, you might be leaving out key points that are really selling points for a buyer or a seller. There are a lot of companies out there that can do it. They'll usually do like a question and answer, like phone interview with you, 5-10 minutes, and then they'll write something up. Do keep in mind that most of these people are professional writers. They're not professionals in real estate. So I still think you should have a real estate agent look it over to make sure it's not too geared toward buyer or seller, or you're not missing something. But I'd highly recommend the professional bio. And this is something that's going to live with you in perpetuity. Yes, Erin?
I was just going to say that I looked into this pretty recently, and there's a website called Fiverr, Fiverr, that hires a lot of writers, and they will do them for, I saw as little as $10. I would go a little bit higher because you want to present yourself really well, and maybe they have better skills, but there are some people who can do it, 24-hour turnaround, 3-day turnaround for very little money. So definitely look into that. I have, and I think that even if I don't like what they wrote, I only am out like $30, big deal.
Yeah, I think I paid $150 for mine. So I've used Fiverr for other things in the past. Oh, I see a bunch of stuff in chat. Guys, I don't monitor chat during our conversations, just an FYI. I highly encourage you to speak up if you can. But I will, if I see the box, I'll stop and look at it. So yeah, the professional writer, it's key. This is something you're going to use for a very, very long time. A couple of points also with bios is, so I've been in the business for 20 years, but obviously the length of time I've been in the business is one of my selling points, right? Unfortunately, if I wanted to include any time frame in there, every year I have to go in and I have to edit that. Thankfully now I'm 2 decades in, so I got to change that number, stop it, to the word decades, just, I don't know, a few months ago. So that makes me very happy. I no longer have to annually update my bio. So just stick away from numbers and statistics that you might have to change, unless it's really important. The other thing is particularly when you're not an experienced agent, that writer is going to be able to pick up other skills that you might have and passions that you might have, and they're going to be able to bring it back in to how it's relevant to a real estate skill. All right, what's something else like a bio that we need to have for a listing presentation, guys? Headshot, pro headshot. If you don't have a professional headshot, I don't care how great you think your photo looks, if you don't have a professional headshot, you need to get one. So you can contact Justin Carter, our marketing guy, and he can set you up with Forward Living in our office. They do headshots pretty cheap. I would highly recommend having the photographer that takes the photos, because I do know Forward Living doesn't always do this. Give you one with a clear background. If you have a clear background, or transparent, I should say, a transparent background, you can impose your headshot onto anything. All right, so before we can, compile a listing presentation, we need those 2 key things. What are some other things that you might want to include in a listing presentation? References, if you have any references. So as a new agent, that's harder, but that's why you get to leverage your mentors' past sales and references. You do need to ask them each time, but they should be providing you with that. Okay, maybe a past sales list, or a recent sales list of things that are like what you're going for in that neighborhood, if your mentor has it, if you don't. But that's okay. I don't actually include a past sales list in my stuff unless I think it's really necessary. Let's also back it up to the CMA. So I told you the comparative market analysis is the most important part of your listing presentation, because if your clients like you, great. Or your potential client likes you, great. They do need to like you. They do need to connect with you. Do they need to love you? No, I don't think so. I think they need to like you. I think they need to trust you. They need to think you're competent. And ultimately, the thing that not all, but the thing that is the most important for most sellers is going to be sales price. So most sellers, whether or not they're going to list with you, or they're going to list with you at the price you recommend, or a price you're even comfortable with, they generally still want more for their property than it's worth. So on top of the CMA, because a CMA guy should never include actives or pendings or backup under contract, should never include that, but that doesn't mean that information is not valuable. So on top of a CMA, you should have, like an MLS printout of all of the like properties or very nearby properties that are active, pending, and under contract, looking for backup. And you should actually reach out to the listing agents there. And most listing agents, if you approach them properly, they may not share their exact contract price with you, but they're more likely to give you a price range, right? So if it was me and I was going for a listing presentation, and I wouldn't do this too early, I would do this probably no more than like 4 days before my listing appointment. I would call up those active and under contract listing agents, and I would say, hey, you know, I have a listing appointment in the neighborhood. I think that your listing's a great comp. You know, I don't want to make you uncomfortable. I'm not going to share it with anyone else, but it would be very helpful to me in my listing appointment if you could, you know, kind of give me a feel for where you are in your pricing under contract. And I actually write these notes down on these active and under contract listings so that I can show them to my sellers, because a seller will cling to any belief that they can possibly have that their property's worth more than it actually is. Okay. Also, keep in mind that not every listing is a great listing. Okay. You're going to spend a lot of time and money on marketing a property you're trying to sell. So let's say I have a listing and, you know, I think it's worth 4 million and the seller wants 5. You know, that's a judgment call for me to make. Do I want to roll the dice with the seller because I don't think I'm going to sell it at 5? And so my conversation is, while I'd love to sell your property at 5 all day long, and I will do everything within my power to do so, I'm not certain that I can based on comps. All other real estate professionals are going to use the same comps that I'm pulling to make a price recommendation for you. So I have the options, you know, of discussing that at that time. So even if you don't match up on price during a listing presentation, it's very important to have that open dialogue about it. I'm willing to try, if you are. You can perhaps ask them if they'll contractually agree to a built-in price reduction if you haven't entered, you know, gone into contract after a certain time frame. But, you know, just really keep that in mind. I know a lot of new agents, particularly, they just get excited at the prospect of having a listing, and it doesn't really reflect very well on you if you have this crazy overpriced listing. And it's probably just going to end up costing you some money. So even if you want to take an overpriced listing, that conversation is super important to make it very clear from the get-go that the comps don't say this number. I'm willing to try. But if I'm willing to try, I want to know that you're going to give me that price reduction ultimately, because, and I'll say, I'm going to spend a lot of time and a lot of money trying to sell your property. Okay, so what are some other things that you might include in a listing presentation? Marketing plan, very important. And your marketing plan should be custom to each property, right? So I'm like not going to do drone footage on some $850,000 condo, right? But I'm going to do drone footage on some hills property pretty much no matter what the price range is, and anything with a view. And obviously anything really high end, I'm going to do that. And right now during the pandemic, we are doing Matterport, the 3D tours for pretty much everything. You know, people really want to know that if they're going to potentially risk their health, that this is a property that they really do want to see, that they are really interested in purchasing. I may do a floor plan, particularly if I happen to know that there's some square footage that is not permitted, or you know, it is a home with multiple structures. So I like to post that on the MLS. And then depending on what's going on, like right now I can't do this, but when open houses and brokers opens come back, one of the special things I do for marketing is I actually hire a company that prints door hangers, and then I hire a company that distributes them door to door with an open house invitation to my first 2 open houses. I tend to like to launch listings on a Thursday and then hold a Saturday and Sunday open house. Why do I like to do that? Well, I want to meet the neighbors because I want more listings. It also makes my open house attendance off the charts because, you know, everyone in the neighborhood gets these, and they're curious. People are very curious. Are these real buyers? Not per se, but you never know, right?
Can I ask you a quick question about the Matterport?
Sure. Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you. I have a friend that has some investment properties, and she, you know, so she's selling them. She renovates them and sells them, and they're empty essentially. So she had another agent call her and say, look, you know, we can sell your property by basically giving a 3D video, but like putting in furniture and things like, and she was, that
there's
seems
digital
fake.
staging.
Like, yeah, she was like, that seems like I'm misrepresenting the property. Is
You
that
can do digital staging. You just need to make it a
digital staging? Yeah.
Yeah, you can do digital staging, but I'm really against digital staging. Why? Because I have people coming in to see a property that evokes a certain emotional response in them. And then they show up and there's this big empty space.
Right.
And so if I was doing a lease, I'm not so against digital staging. But if I'm doing a sale, I feel like it might be a waste of my money as the agent. And, you know, my argument to the seller is let's stage this for real, because what you really need is that emotional response when the buyer walks through the door and comes in.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So what were we talking about? We were talking about open houses and door hangers, right? Oh, we're talking about marketing plan stuff. So every marketing plan is going to be different. You know, you should get creative in this, but there are going to be a lot of things that are going to be like givens every time. And so if you actually pull up the KW listing presentations, there is a marketing plan in there. And most of that stuff I leave in there. There are a couple items I take out. I feel like it's kind of redundant, but I do add items to there. One of the other things I like to do when I have a single family that's in a walkable flat neighborhood is I will, for my first open house, I will have like a live lemonade stand where I hire my friends' really cute little kids to man the lemonade stand. And, you know, they decorate this cute little sign and they put some signage out on the corners, and it really gets the neighbors out and talking and standing in the front yard. That's great ammunition for me also, because if I can't sell your property after I had 80, 90 people through to your open house, if we don't get an offer after that, what does that say? This is overpriced.
Yeah.
It says it's overpriced. If I'm having 80, 90 people through an open house and I'm not getting an offer. So, you know, I really, really try to set myself apart in getting the numbers in. But, you know, and this is obviously something you're not discussing during listing presentation, besides the numbers and having really good open house turnout and a lot of exposure, is I really want to meet the neighbors. I want them to be like, wow, look at that girl. You know, she's an agent that takes it a step above, right? So your marketing plan, keep in mind, even if you have a listing that's not super high end or super great, it's a dual purpose. You'll need to include everything in the marketing plan, but if you're willing to spend more money because you want more exposure, you think it's a good opportunity for you, by all means, put that in the marketing plan. That might be the difference between you getting the listing and not. And it might be a reason you might want to spend more money than you normally would on something, as if you think you can get that exposure. What else? Another thing I put in my marketing plan is that, and this makes headway for a great conversation, is that I accommodate every single showing request that a seller approves, every single one. And how do I do that? I do that by cross-training other agents that the seller gets to meet, typically during a photo, like at the photo shoot or prior to an open house, someone that knows the house that my clients can see so they're comfortable. It's twofold. I can show their property anytime because I have backup coverage. It's threefold. I get to I get to have that conversation with my seller that, oh no, a lot of agents do not make your property easy to show, but I will. So I have a better chance of selling it, right? And then 3, I can actually go on vacation. So marketing plan is very important. You can get much more elaborate if you have the budget. If you have a high-end listing, you may want to do, you know, wine and cheese, what's it called? Twilights. You may be doing catered lunches. Some people have, you know, like, who is it? David Smith, Dave and Berg, Smith and Berg. Ron Smith and David Berg that are at Compass now, formerly Partners Trust, my company that I came from. They do tacos and tequila at their open houses, right? So they get a pretty good turnout. Or they'll hire, you know, like In-N-Out catered, something like that. So there's a lot of things you can do if you want to put the money in, but if you want to be like me and kind of ride the line, you can do things like a lemonade stand. I pay the kids like $25 each I bring an ice chest and a folding chair and tables and markers and a big, sign for them to put up on the table. So it attracts me a lot of attention. I do have to watch the kids pretty carefully, but there are a lot of ideas like that you can use. And if they're in your marketing plan, that just sets you apart from everyone else. So there's that. Like I said, there's going to be dozens of things on the marketing plan that KW has. So start your listing presentation by taking from others, right? I like some of the KW listing presentation, but half of it, more than half of it, I don't think I'd use, right? So start from it though. It's a great idea point. There are some things I definitely just take out right away. And I obviously add bio, I add references, I customize the marketing plan. Also, we have this great thing called neighborhood snapshot. Is that what it's called, Erin?
On the KW command, I'm not sure.
There's been like KW command.
I've seen that.
Yeah, page like neighborhood snapshots. And Blake showed us the other day, like how to actually pull information from the neighborhoods that we want and have that. Does it populate automatically, Erin, or just give us the stats to enter?
Yeah, you have to type in the name of the neighborhood, and this is tricky. It's not going to be based on the MLS areas. It's actually based on
Next door, right?
Next door.
Isn't it next door? Yeah.
Yeah. So that could, just be wary that the results may not reflect what the MLS statistics show.
Oh yeah, it was also like recent sales, and we were like, well, what are recent sales? I want that defined.
Yeah,
so we actually ended up deciding against it. But I think the area we were looking in didn't have a whole lot of stuff in the price range and comparable to what we were looking for. So if you're looking like someplace like Culver City, that snapshot is probably way more accurate, right? Because it's condensed. There are a lot of similar homes in that area. It didn't say anything about criteria like single family or condos either, did it? Right? So that's something to ask Blake. But definitely that neighborhood snapshot, the idea of it, even if you have to pull the statistics manually from the MLS, it's 100% valuable. And I'll give you an example. There was a Kenter Canyon listing in Brentwood I went for one time, and I thought it was worth 2.8. Zillow told my seller that the property is worth 3.6. I hate Zillow. And I was like, I'm sorry, it's just not worth 3.6. He's like, I have an ocean view. I'm like, from your kitchen window over the sink, that's not an ocean view. He's like, well, these homes right down the street are selling. Thankfully, they were listed by my brokerage and an agent I was friendly with at the time. And I'm like, those are brand new construction. Let's look at the stats here. So if this is brand new construction that sold at this price per square foot, this is your average price per square foot in your neighborhood. And that's what I'm talking about with this neighborhood snapshot stuff. You're telling me that your property is worth more. I could believe maybe that your property is worth more than the average square footage in the neighborhood. But now let's compare it to this, this new construction. So the average and the new construction was way off, right? Big difference. But I priced it out per square foot, what he wanted me to list it at. And I'm like, you're telling me that your home is worth $150 more square foot than brand new construction. It's just not. So I did get him down to like 3.2. And then eventually after it sat for 3 months, he let me reduce it down to 2.8 where it should have been, and it sold. But, I went from 3.6 to 3.2. That's a $400,000 reduction I got there just by having some statistics on hand. So I do think it's very important. So try with this neighborhood snapshot, harass Blake, learn how to use it. But if you have to manually pull up the numbers and enter them into this neighborhood snapshot, it's a really great graphic. It's really great to have. Or you can just pull up the MLS stuff and use, like MLS one lines. You can customize one line reports to where you have price per square footage reports, things like that. If you don't know what I'm talking about or you have any difficulty with it, the MLS Help Desk is an amazing resource. You can call them up and you can say, hey, I want to set up a one line report that adds sold price per square foot, into my one line. And it's a very powerful tool. So that's something that I would include in a listing presentation. Also, if you're, like I said, if you're working from a template, something that KW already has, there's going to be tons of information about KW in there. And I don't take it all out, but I do take about half of it out. It's like KW, KW, KW. No, it should be me and what I'm going to do. Your property, and how I'm going to sell it for you. And a little bit about me and a little bit about my company. It shouldn't be so brokerage based. And I'm going to talk about sort of an elephant in the room, and I always talk about this, is that for whatever reason, other agents, other brokerages slam KW Beverly Hills. KW has a great reputation outside of Beverly Hills. And I think that has something to do with, you know, the very exclusive nature of Beverly Hills, and that we hire new agents and train them. Other Beverly Hills brokerages don't typically hire new agents, or if they do, it's few and far between, directly with a mentor or directly onto a team. They just don't take new agents. Or if they do, you know, new agents don't want to go because they want to give them a 60-40 split. So Beverly Hills agents at other brokerages will absolutely blast us. Well, you know, I always sort of touch on that without saying it, right? Because I'm not going to put the idea into my potential seller's head that, you know, other brokerages might have something negative to say about mine. Instead, I'm focusing on KW as a whole. In our KW listing presentation, it has some pretty phenomenal stats. We are number one in the market. Okay. We are number one in the market, 100%.
Have you, like what you're saying, how like, you know, I know what you're saying, like the other agents blast, but have you personally experienced, like, have you had to tell your client, like, hey, this is, you know, what is the talk? And
yeah, I'm getting there. I'm getting there. So,
okay.
So I have this discussion, like, I don't know where that comes from. I think it's a Beverly Hills thing, but ultimately, Mrs. Seller, you're not buying my brokerage. Every brokerage says they're the best. They do exactly the same stuff. Once your property goes on the MLS, every place is going to have it, period. What you're choosing is my services. So, you know, would you, you know, if someone that you knew had a bad experience or had something bad to say about a hair salon, you know, in Beverly Hills versus another one, would you say that every single hairdresser there is terrible? Maybe that person just had a bad experience. Maybe that person just is, you know, a snarky person, who knows? But you're not buying my brokerage, you're buying me and what I'm going to do for you, right? So I love the hairdresser analogy over and over and over again. I always, like if I go up against Redfin or those discount brokerages, I'm like, you know, so I want you to know an agent at Redfin probably makes about $2,500 on the sale of your home. And yes, that does pass on some savings to you, but the rest is going to their company. But if that agent that's getting $2,500 was any good, they would be up over at my brokerage or another one. Because anyone who knows what they're doing, they don't need to have that business handed to them like that. They're not going to do a job that they should be making $25,000 on for $2,500. You get what you pay for, 100%. So as soon as that agent that's working for Redfin has some experience under their belt, guess what they're going to do? They're going to leave Redfin. So you only have really inexperienced agents. And I'm sorry, I mean, I have a hard time believing any agent who's going to make $2,500 is going to drop everything they're doing on Saturday when they're in the middle of shopping at Target to take care of your, you know, your showing, your listing, your need, your question. But I will, right? I will, and I can answer your question. I don't have to go to my hiring management team for that because I know, because I'm at a brokerage that teaches me, because I have the experience. So on the flip side, you know, I have had people, particularly a developer, I don't know where they get this in their head. Oh, well, KW is just not prestigious enough for me to list with you. Really? Let me show you some of the KW listings. Particularly, you know, like we don't have this stigma outside of Beverly Hills. But let me show you what we've done. We sell big listings and we sell the most listings, period, in the state, in the city, in the country. And at the end of the day, are you really, is Keller Williams going to sell your home for you? No, I am. Right. So that's my rebuttal to that. Let's see. What else? The age-old question, to bind or not to bind. So for a listing presentation, obviously something that's hardbound, that's going to stay with the client, looks pretty nice. It can be costly though. Also, you know, I might be getting information up into the last minute or want to include things. So if I'm binding a listing presentation, I need to have it ready way ahead of time. And I need to make sure that I've, you know, quadruple checked it, that I don't want to add or remove anything else. I have personally found spelling errors in some of the KW listing presentation materials in the past. I believe it's been fixed because when I found it, I freaked out and I showed ownership. But just because something is provided to you by a source you find credible, be it our brokerage, another website, I want you to read every single word. If you're using it, it reflects on you. Okay. Let's talk about the actual act of listing presentation now. So we sort of talked about the concept of what goes in there. Oh, and there's going to be a bunch of information about staging. I highly recommend it. KW has really great information about like pricing appropriately too in their templates. So that stuff is all super valuable. There are a lot of pages on it. Again, I don't recommend having a 60-page listing presentation. I just don't. You want to connect with the client. And first and foremost, we're going to do what we're going to talk about now, the actual process of the listing presentation. So you're going to show up.
Sorry. So what is like the number of pages you think we should have in a listing presentation? Because I don't want it to be too long too.
I don't really want more than about 30.
Okay.
Yeah. And honestly, if your listing presentation is going well, you're not going to go through it every page.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you have a listing presentation, you want to avoid flipping through the pages looking like you're reading. You need to know that material. That material is going to help you to know, like, to sound and look like you naturally know what you're talking about. So really study that material. You should pretty much have the arguments and support information that's contained within your listing presentation memorized so that you can have a discussion. And if you want to like pull open a page and refer to it, if there's a graphic or something that's there. Listing presentation is really like a reminder to leave behind about your professionalism and some of the things that you said. And like I said, you may or may not actually include the CMA package in there. So when I talk about listing presentation only being 30 pages max, I'm not talking about the CMA. So any CMA or information on actives and under contracts, I'm not counting in that 30. CMA and active under contract, that can be as long as it needs to be. There are sometimes you're going to have CMAs where you can only find 2-3 good comps, and that's okay, because if there are only 2-3 good comps, there are only 2-3 good comps. But there'll be times that you have 20. Well, when you have 20, you can dwindle that down to 10. I never really want to see more than about 12 to 15 comps in a CMA, guys, just an FYI. And even though I highly recommend always bringing print listing presentation and CMA with you. At the same time, particularly the CMA, if you don't have a tablet as an agent, you probably really should invest in one, because scrolling through the CMA photos of property photos and being able to actually like zoom in and illustrate why and what is different, why their property might be worth more or less in real time while they're looking at you, it's going to be so valuable to you in getting them to come to terms with a realistic listing price. It's very easy for them to say, oh, but our property's better. And you're like, I don't want to tell them it's not. I'm going to show them it's not by zooming in and showing them this photo. I'm like, yeah, your backyard's beautiful, but let's take a look at this one that sold for that price you're talking about. You know, how much would it cost to bring your backyard up to that? All right, so when I walk in the door, you know, I'm early, but I don't go to the door more than like 2 minutes early. That's annoying, right? We're all running late. So I'm early so that I won't be late. You never know what the parking situation is going to be like. So I like to do 15 minutes because, oh, there's nothing worse than, you know, showing up just right on time and then not being able to find parking when you go for a listing appointment. You may want to just go extra early and kind of drive the neighborhood. Maybe you want to drive by some of those actives and under contracts or just solds that you looked at. Maybe you did that during the CMA process because I taught you well during the CMA process. But get there early. You know, particularly all of us dress very professionally. Okay, so don't get me wrong. I'm not going to wear the same thing to a listing appointment with a husband and wife that are like casual people and their house is worth 1.2, as I am when I meet with, someone who has this gorgeous architectural home that I think is worth, $9 million. I'm busting out my, diamond Cartier for that high-end appointment. But I'm dressing professionally in either instance. It's just that I'm going to throw on the jewelry and some of the other things. And the reason why is not because I want to look expensive. I want that seller to connect with me. I want them to see me as part of their crowd, as part of their peer group, as someone they can trust, right? So don't get me wrong. I have lots of clients that I actually think choose me because I'm so different from them. But as far as trying to connect with them initially, I want to seem like someone that runs in their crowd, someone that lives next door, someone that their kids, their parents go to school with. I want to seem like I'm in their crowd. So the other things, ladies, I don't know what is in the mind of some of the women I've taught in the past, but if you are dressing like you're going to the club for a listing appointment, you're not getting it. Cover it up, please. If you're in doubt, don't wear it.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you're in doubt, don't wear it. If you can't bend over in front of your grandfather in it, don't wear it. Okay. Because why, ladies? Who drives real estate decisions under 5 million?
The women.
That's right. And if the wife or whoever is thinking
feels threatened by you, or feels
right,
like you're trashy,
even likes you, but sees her husband checking you out because you're stupid like that, you're not getting that listing. Okay. So particularly when I was younger, like one of my old bosses said, he was like, Christen, you're a very pretty girl. I think it would be beneficial for you not to wear eye makeup though when you want to on a listing presentation or a buyer consult. And you know what? I think he was right. Yeah, I put on makeup, I do my hair, I dress nicely, but again, I don't need
like tone it down, like just tone it.
I don't need to be beautiful. I need to educate them and facilitate what they want. I need them to like me. I don't need them to feel attracted to me. That is not the point. That is not what we're after. I need them to trust me. Right. So yeah, your appearance is important, showing up on time, bringing enough copies of your listing presentation for everyone's really important. You may want to bring something for them. So a lot of times when I'm going on formal listing appointments, I met those people at an open house of mine or something. Right. So I may have had a conversation with them. When I'm at an open house, I take notes. Like if they have kids, if they have dogs, if they said they really like something, I might try to pick up something very small to take with me, not to give them a gift and ingratiate myself, but to show them that I listen and pay attention. Right? It really should not be elaborate or expensive. It should not be flowers. It's better to go with no gift but if you can think of something small that really ties into something you might have talked about, or maybe some information on a house, maybe they met you at an open house, so you can give them an update about that open house, the sale of that home, something, just to tie back in. I listen, I'm attentive. Okay, you come in the door, you exchange your pleasantries. So now it's more like, please show me your lovely home. Don't explore, don't be invasive, but ask tons of questions. Ask them why they did something during the tour. Why did you guys select this home? You probably know how long they've lived here, so you can sort of show that you've done your research. You bought about, 5 or 6 years ago, right? What prompted that? Why are you thinking about selling now? It's all about them, all about their house. Show me what's your favorite part? Where do you spend your most time? Why? Did you make any changes? What was your favorite? What would you like to change that you didn't, if anything? Do you know your neighbors? Oh, tell me about your neighborhood. And you might get like more cutesy information out of particularly a married couple or a long-term couple at this point. If you don't like animals, get over it. If they have animals, you love on those animals. Okay. If you have an allergy, bring Benadryl with you. Non-drowsy. Don't be drowsy during your listing appointment. So after you do that, I want to know about you. I want to know your motivations. Show me your home. Talk about your favorite parts. They're liking you, right? You can chime in, like, feel free to pull it out of them. They're going to ask a little bit about you, answer them, you know, but this is about them. And then you know, kind of rope it back in and you sit down, and that is when you go over the CMA. Much easier to deliver the news that their house is worth far more than they'd like it to be once they like you and they've had that, you know, connection moment with you. It also is going to give you insight. I can't think of a good example, but you know, if you're flipping through photos, let's say they don't like something about their home, you're flipping through photos. Now you have this great comp and you're like, oh yeah, but you know, this one's worth a little more for these reasons. And oh, look, it has that one feature that you really wish your house did. So it's easy to kind of rope it back in, but you're not going to have that information or know how to talk to these people unless you let them talk first. And you have the perfect opportunity to do that. You're going to know what's important to them and why. You're going to have the best opportunity to present your information in a way that they're going to be receptive to, or the most receptive to. Also, I want to tell you, I hate that I have to tell you this, don't be too pushy. You have to make them feel empowered. You let them know that you're there to help them at any time. If they're not ready now, that's fine. Is it okay for you to check in? Is there anything you can help them with to prep for market or help them prepare? One of the best listings I ever got, I didn't get it right away. They were like, oh, we're not sure. We're building our next home. And I think I've told this story before, but I actually ended up getting them to list with me 6 months earlier than they said they were going to be ready at the earliest, because they wanted a certain price. And while I told them I didn't think that price was really realistic, I still kept that in my mind. I set up a search, an MLS search for myself around their home, and all of these really ugly overpriced homes that were similar statistics, similar sizes, came on the market. And so I called them up and I said, hey guys, you wanted that 1.3. I think the house is worth 1.1, but you want that 1.3? Well, guess what? I'm going to email you 6 homes that came on the market in the last week. None of them is as cute. All of them are overpriced, but significantly overpriced. If you want to get anything close to 1.3, let your bad competition sell it for you. And we actually went onto the market really quick. I had to rush at that point. And we did. We sold at 1.29 on something I thought was worth 1.1. And it is still the highest comp there 2 years after the fact. And that's because I paid attention to the market and them, and I wasn't pushy. If I had been pushy, I probably wouldn't have got that opportunity, and they probably wouldn't have listened to me when I came back to them with the, you want this? I think we can use the current market conditions to get you that at this point if we're going to do it. And you know, my response or my counter argument was, if we don't sell it in a month, we take it off and we put it back on in 6 months, like you wanted. So just keep in mind not to be too pushy, really hear what they're saying. And even if you're going to problem solve, I wouldn't necessarily do it in that one appointment. You want them to feel like you care about them, you're educating them, you're empowering them. And you should genuinely feel that way, guys. If you don't, it's going to be a harder, you know, a harder course for you. If they don't feel that, you're not going to get that opportunity later. You're going to make them uncomfortable. No one likes to feel pressured. It's a huge decision. And I always have a little conversation with myself. You know, I play my loud rap music in the car on the way over because I want to get pumped up. I'm going to go get a listing. I'm going to sell it, right? But at the same time, I have to have that conversation with myself. Is that this is a huge and scary decision. Even for people who say it's not an emotional decision, it's a financial decision, at some point there's emotional behavior, emotional responses. It's stressful. It's one of the biggest decisions people ever make. I mean, you know, a job, a spouse, a birth, a death, and a home sale. These are really big things. And when you look at them in comparison to those other things, it's really easy to remember and come from a place of service and spirit and care. When you truly are coming from a place of spirit and of care and service, I think that comes across pretty openly and blatantly. The other thing I want to warn you, don't lie, don't fill, don't bullshit. If you don't know the answer, tell them you don't know the answer, but you're going to find out and get back to them. And then you have an in to email them and show them all the beautiful research you've done because you're a great agent. You don't need to know everything to be the best agent. You need to be the hardest working agent who uses all their resources to be the best agent. And by doing things like that and being honest and then following up right away, you're showing them the kind of person that anyone would want to work with, right? So I do bring a listing contract with me to my appointments because on a rare occasion, I do have someone that wants to just do it. So I bring the listing contract, though. I do it to sort of review with the clients in real time to ask all the questions. The reason for that is when you print out a listing contract, but then you hand write stuff in, you actually have to have an initial next to everything that doesn't match to show that it was all signed at the same time. So I go through the physical one, I write everything down, and then I just do the DocuSign right there in front of them. Because I'd like to have that listing ASAP, right? Anyone else have any ideas or questions or had something happen to them during a listing presentation appointment that they'd want to talk about?
I have a question though. I mean, so after, you do your presentation, you're obviously just, it kind of, you just got to feel comfortable enough to say, hey, are you ready to sign with me? Are you ready to?
Yeah, you have to ask for the business. 100%.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, you have to. Yeah. So
Yeah.
obviously like without.
How do I do that?
Yeah, well, I know. I mean, without pulling up a bunch of paperwork and making them like nervous, like, okay, get ready because there's 10 sheets you're going to sign,
Oh yeah, no, I don't do that. Only if they're like, I want to sign it now, do I even bust that out? If not, I'm like, great, I'll go back to my office or my house. I'll draft up the paperwork for you.
So that they're not freaked out after and they don't feel overwhelmed.
Or I might pull it out and say, great, I'm going to give you this blank contract so that you have time to review it. Unless you'd like to review it with me now. And then, later today, I'll type a listing contract up and we can review it. Yeah. Yeah. I use it more as a reference, but so they know it's there. Also, my strength as an agent is my contractual knowledge, right? So I want every opportunity I can to get my contractual knowledge out there in front of that client ASAP. The sooner they see that, the more likely I am, I think, to get the business. So, again, guys, know your contracts. It's going to lend to a lot of confidence by potential clients. But yeah, I have it there. I'll leave it. But this is how I ask for the business. I generally ask them, how are you feeling? What do you think about the price evaluation? Do you have any questions about me or my services? Right? And, they may not. I keep it really light. Well, I'd love to work with you. You have any idea when you'd like to get started? It will take me a couple of weeks to properly prepare your property for the market. So, if you're looking to do it soon, I need to get some appointments scheduled. And if you want to do it later, I want to calendar those things out so I can revisit comps and review them with you again. Basically, I'm asking for a time frame, even though I'm making it sound very casual, right? Or they're like, I'm really not sure. You mind if I check in with you next week or next month? If they're really sounding like a no, do you mind if I check in with you next month? And in the meantime, I probably do go ahead without their permission and send them a couple of emails or something like that. Oh, hey, this property came up the block down from you. I thought you might want to take a look at it. There's an open house on Sunday. Do you want me to meet you there? That kind of thing. You know what I mean? Friendly, non-pressure, but I continuously want my name in front of them. I continuously want them to know I'm thinking about them and doing work on their behalf, but I don't want it to feel pressured. Anybody else? No? Okay. All right then. I hope you all have a great day. I hope I'd love to see someone's business plan after it's done. If someone will share with me. Okay. Bye.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.